Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the StarCraft 2 World Championship Series. We are here with Group A for applesauce because the apples weren't enough. They had to be mashed up and crushed down into a paste and injected with a lot more sugar. I'm Nathanius, joined by Cole Taryn.
Howdy.
As we get ready for our final match here for Europe.
Yeah, get to round it out before the Great American Hopes come into play, pulling up in their muscle cars, hear them revving them up outside.
I hear the distant call of a bald eagle up on the mountain. You guys don't see it, but when I X-ray vision, the Burbank Mountains are literally right there outside. Actually, in this direction as well, I think. So I'm just
they're there. It's like the Ride of the Raharim, but with Imkani at the front.
Yeah,
it's great. It's
exactly.
a good time. But first, GunGFuBanDa taking on uThermal. Going to be a great PvT. In theory, right? I mean, uThermal definitely very vocal about this.
uThermal is someone who does get salty about Terran versus Protoss. So you guys in Twitch chat, you guys are gonna gel really well here. Because that's pretty much the way that things go.
Yeah. And with GunGFu already playing such crazy styles already today, I'm really curious to see what he's going to pull out against somebody who already doesn't like the matchup going into it.
Yeah, I expect to see lots of aggression on both sides. Definitely two base all-ins at for the longest sort of type of game that uThermal would play. But maybe he also thinks that he could win in a long macro game. However, he then runs the risk of losing and then being like, well, of course I can't play macro versus Protoss.
See, I feel like if he goes to the macro game, then it's good either way, right? Either he wins and he can finally break that curse, or it's great. It's great Reddit content. We'll see what he's going to be able to pull out. As we start off on the top left-hand side, it is uThermal.
I was going to say, they're already making a patch that will have a huge impact on this matchup in about a week and a half now, so losing now doesn't actually change anything. They're already patching it. In the bottom right, his opponent, it's GunGFuBanDa.
Yeah, and that is an interesting little thing for these players as well. With that patch coming up on the 20th, Challenger Finals, of course, 23rd and 24th.
So the biggest thing, I think, is the Warp Prism change for this matchup. Stim is getting a research time buff, but that's mostly on the defensive side. If you're a Terran player who regularly gets contained by Blink Stalkers, now you've only got to hold on for 21 less seconds, which is a huge amount of time in StarCraft.
Absolutely.
There's so much that can happen in that period of time. You can almost build a supply depot in 21 seconds. But the other thing, I think, as well as the Warp Prism change, it's, what is it? It's going to be 50 more minerals, and it's only going to have 5 pickup range, which is really big.
Yeah. And it's definitely going to have a lasting impact on this matchup. And I'm really curious to see how these players are going to adapt to it, right? It's always, always a point of contention, especially when it happens in the middle. Changes like that happen in the middle of these longer tournaments.
Yeah. For WCS especially, because generally speaking, we have two things that happen. It's in the middle of season for somebody, because we always try to avoid it being during tournaments.
Right.
What a terrible problem we have, that there are just so many StarCraft tournaments.
There's just too many.
That you almost can't. You can't really avoid putting it in the middle of something. So the finals for this season of Challenger are going to be on the new patch. So that will definitely have an interesting impact. The Infested Terran change is the biggest thing for a late game for Terran and Protoss alike.
Absolutely. It is a massive, massive change.
But this matchup's dynamic is going to shift quite a bit once that Prism play is no longer as much of a go-to or as strong, since the Terran will also not be boxed in as hard by things like Blink. So we'll see where everybody wants to go, but for the purpose of this game, very normal to get this Twilight Council, the Adept to push the Reaper back, and I'm expecting to see like a mine drop out of uThermal with these some Marines getting cranked out of the reactor barracks. I really don't expect anything weird on either side, maybe just aggressive at worst.
Yeah, I completely agree. We see the Reaper might actually be able to get a probe kill. That's kind of nice. And yeah, like you said, very standard stuff. That reactor pumping out the Marines. There's a Widow Mine. There's a Starport. Exactly as you're saying. And that was going to be on GunGFu to identify this. And, we'll have the tools to respond. Already going to have a pretty decent Stalker count. Continuing production from that gateway as Blink gets started up.
His probe did see the factory being built in the main. So he should be very aware of what's coming. And that's why you go for Blink. Just Chrono Boost Blink out. warp gate finishes, get up to 3 gates, get a couple stalkers, and you're generally fine as long as you're on top of wherever the medevac comes in from. And a sentry is going to be slowly built.
Yeah, and we, you know, something we've seen from a lot of Protoss players recently, getting that third pylon behind your third base, so you can spot any drops heading in towards your natural. Especially on King's Cove, there's a lot of positioning you can do, like with an adept on the high ground between your third and fourth, able to spot a lot of that medevac, or potentially Banshee now on the way. And potentially being able to spot that as well.
That is a really interesting choice. Banshee's not a particularly popular option. They used to trade semi-decently against Stalkers before Stalkers got the damage buff, but they don't really anymore. It's mostly... Banshees mostly get damage done against Protoss because Protoss assumes nobody will ever build Banshees.
Right.
They're not popular. They're really not great. A shield battery stops a Banshee for like, it must be something like 6 or 7 attacks, which gives you a huge amount of time to get an observer over there with some stalkers.
Yeah.
So
definitely, it's definitely going to be tough for uThermal if that gets spotted right now. Heading up towards that main base. And so far, so good. There is that pylon at the fourth base that might spot this.
That pylon is going to reveal it. Because this would be really good, but as soon as you know there's a Banshee, like, the best thing that you can do, and maybe he'll try to be greedy about this, but no, okay, yeah, there we go, shield battery. Just build a shield battery.
Yeah, doesn't even have to worry about moving the rest of his army over.
It buys you so much time.
Yeah, this is just so significantly difficult for uThermal now, and the Stalker's already starting to engage that in the main base. So will not have much use, right? Not yet the harassment, not really going to be much of an option from that Banshee, and now we have that tech invested for really not much gain right now.
He's going to go mech, is what it looks like, which is really interesting. So the Banshee gets stuck behind the base. Man, I think Banshees suck, and I used to love Banshees so much. Every other unit has just been tweaked. Like, stuff has been tweaked in so many different ways, but Banshee's not really gotten any love in like the last couple of years, other than the speed upgrade, which doesn't really help unless you're going mass Banshee. But yeah, so I don't expect to see these guys get anything done.
Yeah.
However, seeing mech versus Protoss is really fun. It's like the battle mech versus Protoss is the same as versus Zerg, except it's like on like double time speed. If you make a mistake, you're gonna die twice as fast, but you can get a lot of momentum versus Protoss, especially if you mix in what I really like to see and what I like to do. A fast armory is something that a lot of the Korean Terrans who do this as well, because drilling claws really gives you amazing zoning options, because cyclones will lock on to observers that usually get in front of armies, and there's a whole lot that you can do there. So I'm excited to see this. However, you also very vulnerable. It's totally possible that GunGFuBanDa just builds up a good army, gets a ton of charged zealots, and just rolls through uThermal if he's too greedy. So there's a whole lot to unpack when it comes to playing mech versus Protoss, but it certainly has a lot of ways that it can work, and there are certain unit compositions that are very, very good.
Yeah, you know, Cyclones, especially with the Magnfield Accelerator, really just do such a great job of shredding through so much of the Protoss force that's going to be making up the majority of this army. You know, we have the Robotics Bay just now finished up. Those Colossi especially going to get shredded so quickly with good lock-ons. And like you were saying, would love to see that Drilling Claw upgrade. But for the time being, it's just going to be Blue Flame. You know, more Hellions getting added on, going to have great response to those charge slots at the front. Armor on the way for GunGFu to help give them a little bit more survivability, but...
Yeah. I'm not crazy about Hellions versus Protoss, just because it takes... It really does... Hellions really aren't good against Zealots, because once they have charge, they trade very well against Hellbats, and they actually demolish Hellions up front. So usually you're not going to end up having a bunch of Hellions able to kite Zealots in the middle of the map. It's just not something that typically happens in the game.
Right.
But I really want to see him get a lot of Widow Mines, spread him around the map, take control of the map as much as possible. I think that's a big key to success. He's getting high-sec auto-tracking very early, and I love, honestly, I'm like, this guy must watch Nathanius' stream or something, because the biggest threat to any mech play the biggest single threat to any mech play is a warp prism. You can do everything right. You can have all the tanks. You can have everything. If one prism slips by one of your turrets, gets in your base and warps in like 11 charged zealots in your main, you're dead 100% of the time when you're playing mech. You're going to pull all your mobile units back, and then one of your bases are going to get sniped or something bad is going to happen. You have to really, really be cautious. Using the warp prism to juggle here, I do like that.
That's a nice move. Going to help break those lock-ons as +2 and +1 shield actually getting started up on the backside of this for GunGFu. A little bit unusual.
As the king of missile turrets in NA, I will tell you that with high-sec auto tracking, the 2 turrets he has on the third and the 2 turrets he has in his main, guaranteed to stop a prism from getting by.
That's fantastic. Yeah, that is really, really nice for uThermal. Decent catch here for GunGFu. Going to catch these Hellions for free. Always nice, but like you said earlier, not really much of a role that they're going to have against this composition, right? Not very unusual to see them be useful, and he's still going to continue remaking them here. So
he got the armories, hasn't started any upgrades with it. And if you're going to use Hellions, you have to have servos, but also I'm going to say it again. I'd like to see drilling claws. They're a really great anchor point. The Cyclone locks on to the hallucinated prism tragically, and the Stalkers on the hunt for that Cyclone now. But the pylon spread by GunGFu is also really good because he's basically buying himself a lot of time. If a Cyclone goes by that, they're going to want to lock it down and blow it up. But GunGFuBanDa getting this type of map vision is really, really, really important. Yeah,
this is so nice right now. And keeping his army split up as well, both forces able to apply. It's pretty significant pressure as now the army of uThermal moving a bit, but still a little too small to be able to deal with these Colossi on the back. Trying to kite back with these lock-ons. That other force of Blink Stalkers moving in now. Might be able to find an opening.
Yeah, with enough tanks, you can do a lot. But there's quite a bit here. However, one of the other things to keep in mind, of course, is the air transition from Protoss. And, oh, this is a really good grab because there are enough Cyclones to lock on to almost every single one of the Stalkers. I do like that. This is where servos would be nice, though.
And here comes that other army from the top as well.
These Zealots almost always trade cost effectively versus almost like basically every mech composition that there is. So you have to be super cautious. Scanning up the ramp for vision, by the way, allows him to get the Observer, too. Really nice. Stalkers are expensive, so killing those in this type of way is really nice. Resonating Glaives I don't get, but he's getting a Fleet Bacon. I really think a lot of Vikings with servos are good. His rally's a bit messed up, by the way, because a tank is sieged on his main ramp. So he's got 4 tanks just chilling in the corner of his main base doing nothing. 5 tanks just chilling in the corner of his main base doing nothing.
Highly unfortunate here. Yeah, I completely agree. Would love to see that upgrade come out. Liberator is starting to get added on as that 1-1 for this mech, starting to get closer to finishing. Nice job by GunGFu shutting down this run by. And uThermal, has held that attack on the other side, and still isn't able to do any real damage to the economy, but he's still in a really good spot, right? I mean, more tanks getting added on. He's adding on more production.
This has been good, but he has to go now because carriers should be starting any moment. And for mech on the ground, there is nothing that is good against carriers. You can use Widow Mines to supplement missile turrets. You could bring SCVs to try to put aggressive turrets, but you're not really getting close to them with Thors because of the range of the interceptors, and Thors don't kill interceptors effectively. So you want to make this push before that air army comes. And he's not actually building air units, so this is as good as it could be for uThermal.
Yeah.
But because he's attacking through such an open area, he is inviting the most epic spread from the Protoss, and he is going to come in, tries to drop Zealot bombs onto the tanks mid-fight as well. Beautifully done by GunGFuBanDa.
Pushing through the center here, and the Colossi now opening up onto those tanks. Such an expensive fight to lose, and GunGFuBanDa gonna strike first.
And GG, well played. That's kind of the hard thing, is the Prism coming in on top hurts. He quickly focus fired the tanks back onto the Protoss army, but when you're able to get a spread like that and an arc like that, then the Immortals are really good. The Colossi are good because the tanks are clumped up.
Yeah, Guardian Shield bringing a lot of value as well to a lot of those Blink Stalkers in the center, and yeah, like the uThermal had such a good composition,
it's
right?
Not the place to attack.
Yeah, like he had a decent composition, and then just moving forward there. And yeah, like you said, those charge slots alone able to trade out so effectively as well.
If he pushes by where the natural cliff is, like there's a high ground he could try to use, or he could just try to use the choke point. But he attacked through the most open part of the map.
It's like he took that fight on hard mode.
He took the fight in the one spot where there could be this big 180-degree arc that the Protoss army could move in from. Whereas if he goes like where that 4th base is. If he just goes from the south part, then he's got the terrain covering him, and maybe he can still get flanked, or the Prism can still come in, but he's not going to have this big arc for the Immortals. And siege tanks against clumped Immortals, they demolish them.
Absolutely, yeah. Just not being able to find exactly where he was wanting to, find that good engagement, and GunGfu capitalizing. uThermal, on elimination point, right? Almost out of this tournament, out of Group Stage 1, or Group A, I should say. I don't think what people were expecting, right? I think he was. I was expecting him to get out of this group at least.
Yeah, I mean, I thought that a Laser would beat GunGFuBanDa, and I assumed that uThermal would win the rematch against the Laser because his TVZ is very good, but Raynor is just obviously a cut above. However, as soon as I saw uThermal was going to have to play versus a Protoss, I'm like, I think GunGFuBanDa gets out of this group in second place. So uThermal might try to do bio or something now because he's going to be like, oh, wow, yeah, Meg's terrible doing that. But I don't like Hellions versus Protoss.
Yeah.
Early on, there's some, like, Hellion drop or whatever can be fun.
Right.
I just... I watch a lot of Koreans who stream mech, and I play a lot of it myself, and most of what I see, and obviously my gameplay is not up to the uThermal's level, but when I watch guys like TY or Gumiho stream, it's a very heavy focus on drilling claw widow mines, and air transitions are really big. You play mech, you secure your 4 or 5 bases, and then it usually goes like 5 starports, and you see the big transition into battle cruisers with lots of Vikings, or at least ranged Liberators. They all complement mech very well, and they give you something against like that air transition that a lot of Protoss players try to make too.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like I'm really interested to see how that if anything, what changes uThermal is going to make here, right? I mean, obviously a very big fan of that mech play. Been seeing it from him pretty consistently today and recently in general. I don't think I've seen very many just straight up bio games from him, especially not against Protoss. As and GunGfu, didn't really play crazy, didn't do anything super wild there. Just solid play, solid defenses, getting himself some nice leads.
uThermal didn't give him too many opportunities. Like his defenses were set up very nicely. His units were in position very well. A lot of it just boiled down to. Now I'm going to say all of it just boiled down to he wanted to hit a timing. He scanned, saw Fleet Beacon, and he didn't have any starports. He had just the one with, like, I don't even think there were any add-ons on it.
Yeah.
He just had that one starport. He sees a Fleet Beacon. He says, well, I'm dead if he just starts building carriers and I sit back. But probably could have taken just a little bit more time on the positioning side because GunGFuBanDa, to his credit as well, one of the ways that uThermal does win that is GunGFuBanDa actually starts up 5 carriers, and then all that supply is tied up, and he can't do the warp in before the mech push hits, and then he just dies. So there's a bunch of different ways, but best decision made by GunGFuBanDa considering what his opponent did, and that guy in the top left, trailing 0-1 in this best of 3, is uThermal.
Facing you off against this guy down here in the bottom right-hand side, channeling the power of Ire, he is GunGFuBanDa. We're going to close this out 2-0, secure that second spot out of this group.
Yeah, he's got to be feeling confident in himself. I mean, honestly, that game 3 against a Laser, there's no universe where he should have been able to win that.
Oh, no.
It doesn't make sense. It doesn't compute. When the aliens research our history, when they use their super AI to download all the data that's ever existed because nothing can be erased, and then they find this game of STARCRAFT, they're going to be like, what happened? How did GunGFuBanDa get out in second place in Group A? Should have lost in the 3rd game of the loser match when he didn't even finish the Immortal in his proxy robo and lost it. What did Twitch chat say? Twitch chat said it was 1,000 minerals down the drain for free. Something like that. 2019, man. Crazy year.
Yeah. the year our timeline diverges from what the plan was. It just goes bonkers.
Yeah. So the probe is being annoying, as probes are wont to do. My favorite thing about uThermal's gameplay today that I will continue to compliment him on, SCV scouting. Very important. Getting units out. He goes for the quick reactor. Very TY-esque. He didn't take any SCVs off of the gas in the main, so it doesn't seem like it's going to be the greediest build ever, but just wants to have a few more Marines than he otherwise normally would. Technically speaking, if you can get away with it, going reactor first, and then building a Reaper and a Marine, It ends up timing out the exact same normally, except you just have an extra Marine.
Oh, interesting. Awesome stuff here as Factory getting dropped for uThermal and GunGfu. Just keeping it standard here. Should be seeing that tech of choice here in the near future. This is after that Sentry comes out. Units expansion gets finished up. Going to be a yeah. I'm really interested here to see if GunGfu goes for something crazy. So far, so standard. Twilight Council on the way.
Most Protoss players do this wall off in their main every game on this map, so you don't expect to do anything with the Reaper anyway, because A, that wall is there, B, in the game number 1, GunGFuBanDa built the Adept, so he probably expected that there would be an Adept there. So he's like, what's the point of building the Reaper anyway? Like, if I run it in, it's just going to die. Maybe I'll just scan later instead and have the extra Marines for, like, an early drop.
Yeah, absolutely.
But actually, it's going to be... She's got the 6 Marines, but he's swapped off to making reactored Hellions. Maybe we're going to have a Hellion drop, or he's going to go, like, Hellion Banshee or something weird.
Yeah, a lot of options opening up to him here as that tech lab is getting closer to finishing. Curious to see what he's going to be doing with that. If
the random 6 Marine move out.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think this is going to do anything because shield batteries exist, but it's going to burn a force field, I guess, out of the Sentry. And now the Stalker will chase these Marines.
Okay.
Maybe? No? He doesn't want to risk it. He doesn't want the Hellions to get through. So he's like, oh, I burned your force field, but the unit still blocks up. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Good pylon placement by GunGfu, and yeah, he's gonna be real safe here.
A for effort, I guess.
And there's Banshee again from uThermal coming out, and I still don't like it, Nate. I still don't like it.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I'm never gonna like it. When it works, I'll be like, oh wow, that was cool, but I just don't. I don't see it regularly be that crazy useful. Draining the energy on the shield battery and the natural is like somewhat nice, but I still think it's going to get a lot of that energy back in time.
Mm-hmm.
You need it to not be spotted, because if they build a shield battery in that mineral line in the main, that's like, it's just the fun is over. Yeah, yep. They're going to chrono out an observer or bring it back from wherever it was, and then they're going to push your Banshee away. The one big benefit of the Banshee, though, to not be such a Debbie Downer about it, is that it can have the effect of keeping the Protoss some units at home. You can force warp-ins at home.
Absolutely.
They either have units there, or the Banshee starts shooting, and they immediately warp in Stalkers. So you can guarantee the Protoss warp stuff in at home. However, now the Phoenix hallucination comes by, and he knows it's going to be BIOS. Sees the barracks that are building. So that's just a great thing. GunGFuBanDa doesn't even have to think about that now.
Yeah, Banshee coming in here now. That shield battery does have a bit of energy left. Or regenerated, I guess I should say, as Forge coming up. Let's see what we're done. Should get 1 or 2. Just 1. And we'll get out of here. So, yeah.
A probe.
A probe for
a
Banshee,
250
probe,
minerals and 200
it adds
gas.
up. You know, I'm not an accountant, but I gotta say it's not worth it.
No. I'm just don't. No. I can't. I can't remember the last time I got inspired by Banshee play. I think it was when Innovation did that, like, 2-port Banshee for the first time. But now half the Zergs open up with Spires, so, like, you just can't build them at all.
Yeah. And now these 2 Banshees are going to go lament their lack of usefulness in the corner as GunGfu finishes securing its 3rd base, going to start saturating it.
He's trying with the Hellions to pull the attention. Now 2 Banshees timed properly and punch through the battery, so that's a bit better. And he's going to be able to get some damage done finally with those. Yeah. So five probes, I think that's counting the one from the Hellions on that 3rd base. That's good. This is where we finally get to see the Banshees do a bit of something, but on their own, they're not going to be useful because of the shield battery. So good adjustment, doing something with the 2 Banshees. Maybe bring them home, repair them. Still got his stim almost halfway done. It'd be past halfway right now after the patch, Cole Terran.
Those 21 seconds, man, they add up. With that +1.
That's another reason why I don't like the Banshee opening, because it delays the tech. But that's one of the reasons why they said that they did the stim thing, because they want Terrans to be able to open with tech versus Protoss and then transition a bit faster.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a much-needed, I think, change to this matchup, right? Give it a little bit more flexibility early.
This matchup hasn't had many interesting changes for a very long time.
Right. And, you know, I feel like right now is one of the most boring states in terms of the meta it's been. You know, Protoss getting a fast double forge, which I feel like is also the same thing people have been saying for months.
And Terran players 2-base all winning them.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it was that all the way through last year as well. People just forget that it was not as visible because Terrans resorted to proxying every single game when they got fed up with it.
All right, here
the Hellions get in. 2 probes picked off very nicely there. And Hellions are useless in this stage of the game, so getting anything for them, I'd say, is an absolute win.
Definitely.
That's some information. I don't know if he already saw the Robo Bay, but if he didn't, now he knows.
Yep, sees that it's researching as well, which is nice. Didn't see the Colossus are on the way or anything, and also as well as High Templar. So going to have going into quite a bit of tech pass here for GunGFu on still just the 4 gases, so could be running low on that as he continues this production. Interested to see how he'll be spending that as these Banshees looking for an opportunity to find a drone on a probe on a transfer.
They're trying to be cheeky. They're trying to be cheeky and moving in a weird way that they won't be spotted, and because of that, they will, and that's quite nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna deny all the mining here. Killed 6 workers as well, 7. Not too shabby at all.
Yeah, this is where the Banshee can see a bit of better utility usage, because right now GunGFuBanDa is moving out across the map towards that 3rd. I think he actually could just kill it if he right-clicks towards it right now, because the Terran army needs to move. So the Banshees are going to finally die. He forced a cannon warp in too, so actually I'm going to say that was really good. But
yeah, absolutely. 12 workers plus that cannon invested.
So think about it like this, Cole Terran. He lifts the command center because of 3 Colossi and 1 billion charged Zealots, but he doesn't have any Stalkers, so he can't try to kill the command center. That is because the Banshee kept all the Stalkers at home.
Exactly right. Good moves by uThermal. Going to keep that command center alive as still looking to secure it here, adding on more tanks. That bio can even get beefier as it is going to be disruptors added on behind this for GunGFu.
And then this is where the fun begins. Just got to be careful about that turret with that prism if it gets into the main.
Yep.
When you're playing bio, if your units are just started being queued or if you're supply blocked for a moment, 10 Zealots suddenly rip through everything. He's got 4 in the prism. He just warps in a few more and things get ugly real quick.
Yep, things can get super, super dicey as Zealots do spot that drop moving out. That's very nice. Blink Stalkers moving to intercept. Good heads-up play by GunGFu. That disruptor.
And he's got a disruptor mixed in here now. He's starting 2 more factories. Fascinating. He wants to go mega tank, I guess, versus this.
Yeah, which will give him, a strong defensive position. I just worry that we'd run into that same situation we saw in the last game where he's not able to move across the map, right?
The map vision for GunGFuBanDa is disgusting. Like, that poor medevac never had a chance. Maybe it gets away, but
so close.
He wasn't able to do his drop. There's a pylon on the northeast side. I don't know how this medevac hasn't been spotted. I guess it was because he was tunnel visioned on the one on the left, so.
Yeah, might have found like a slight gap before that warp prism got there or something. But yeah, now the drop, it's going to head in towards this 4th base. There's nothing really there. Maybe we'll kill a pylon.
I might kill a probe too.
Oh.
Okay, I think he can get the cancel here.
Yeah, no warpins available, I guess, so very nice.
Yeah, if he had instantly reacted to warp in, I think he gets a lot more done here.
Yeah, and tried to fight it there.
That's...
Yeah, we'll get cleaned up. It would have been very close.
Mind, no cancel. F. And now he's going to go over here, but there's a photon cannon and a battery. 3 Marines are not going to do it.
Ooh, big army movement on the left as well.
Yep, Prism's making its way into the main. It made it past the turret. Worth pointing out.
Yep, as the Stalkers get chased down, Zealots unload in the main base, so SCP's on the run.
7 Zealots being warped in his main. And
Massive.
This is the part where I smash my keyboard in half.
This is where the add-ons on all these production facilities are in such jeopardy. More Zealots at the 3rd base middle line as well. The main army of uThermal trapped across the map, and he's going to be forced into this fight.
When you play a race that doesn't have recall, it feels bad.
I can feel the sadness in your voice, Nate. This is...
Well, I mean, it's perfect play by GunGFuBanDa. He waited for the army to move out, forced the prism in, and you can't micro while you're trying to deal with everything back home. GG, well played. Just GunGFuBanDa did it perfectly. He baited the army out. He had a pylon on the west side. He had a pylon on the east side by his base very early. He had the prism waiting by where the medevac went. He had the Zealots spread out. There was no way that uThermal could leave his base without being seen. And he said, as soon as you leave your base, I'm going to force the prism in because there's 1 turret. A prism can fly by 1 turret. And then you're just going to die because you're going to have 2 choices. You can try to base trade me, which won't work because I have Storm and Disruptors and Colossi. Or you can try to run home. And by the time you get there, my Zealots will have killed half your SCVs and all your add-ons. And probably some of your buildings too, other than those, right? And that's just really well done. That's the way to do it. If you're going to leave your base versus Protoss, it's a very terrifying thing.
Yep, and you know, GunGFu being so patient with his army setup as well. We saw whenever that one drop escaped towards the 4th base, he already had zealots waiting for that run by at the 3rd.
Yeah.
And
he had units everywhere.
Yeah,
Like,
just complete spread of the map. Very well done by GunGFu. Impressive stuff. Congrats to him. Going to be escaping here in 2nd place.
That's that comes a little bit back to what I was talking about with just when you do openers like Banshee and stuff. That's cool, but you got to wait for the 2nd one, and the Protoss still gets the 3rd base. So you just don't have anything that can, you know, there's no meat. Right. You're snacking on crackers with maybe a little bit of salami, but it's just it's not a meal.
Right. It's not enough.
It's not a meal, and without proper nutrition, uThermal is not able to win this best of 3. GunGFuBanDa moves on 2-0. That does it for Group A here for WCS Challenger Europe. Raynor makes it out in 1st. Behind him, GunGFuBanDa. Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be moving into Group A for WCS Challenger Americas. And very excited to get into that as we've got young players all over these groups.
Yeah, young players. We've got, you know, Canning, Estrella. I'm so excited for this group. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be a good time. We'll see you on the other side. We're going to go to a quick break. When we return, WCS Americas kicks off.